from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased joining me from Boston in the US, Tarun. Tarun, thank you very much for joining the show today. You know, the way I love to do it is I keep to my guests to introduce themselves, so the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks, Mehmet. Hey guys, nice talking to you guys. And Mehmet, thanks for giving me this opportunity. Right. My name is Tarun. I am originally from India. I moved to US like 10 years back. I did my master's from Northeastern University, and then I worked as a consultant for following like 5 to 7 years. I started like PartRunner in 2018. And then it's like 2021 is when I kind of completely got in. And it's been like a roller coaster ride. We went through a lot of investment rounds. We went through like hiccups, right? But the positive side, like right now we are able to grow very strongly in last 1 year. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Great, Tarun, and again, thank you for being on the show. So, you know what, I'm interested to know, like, you have, I would say, like a inspiring story, about how did you start it. So, if you can tell me exactly, when you decided to transition from data science to entrepreneurship, like, what were the challenges that you faced, while doing this, especially, and I'm sure, like, because I passed this, and I know that a lot of people pass this, especially when you are, going to this entrepreneurship journey for the first time. So also, like, what were the major things that you managed to overcome? And, would be an inspiring story for fellow entrepreneurs, I would say.
Sure. I mean, for me, I wouldn't say like in my early 20s or my late teens, right? Like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think that was not the case. I think it was mostly once I graduated, once I started working, right? The motivation was not coming through for me, right? I was always looking for something that I could do other than the work, right? I was trying to be professional as much as I can, right? But at the same time, I think just that inner feeling, like, that incomplete feeling, right? And circumstances were like that. And in US with visa and all, right? I think it came a point where I wanted to try something, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had no idea beyond that. Like, it almost like I was not, and I'm not recommending for people to do what I did. It takes time if you go through my path, which I'm going through now. But everyone has their own journey in a way. But yeah, it was tough. Like I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to do something by myself, what it is. I thought like, okay, I had a civil engineering background. I did from IIT Bombay in India. Then I did construction management. Then I worked data science. I thought maybe like whatever footsteps I've taken previously can come together. So I started exploring something in this space, like, but again, I had no idea what was the starting point, right? I just went with the flow. I learned development myself. I didn't really to be honest, I did all the wrongs on how to start a business, right? But I think on hindsight, I started. I think that's the biggest difference I feel like between many people, right? Sometimes you may not even know what is right way to start, but you need to start, right? If you start, then you can move in one way or other way at least.
Yeah, 100%. And this is always, we always tell people, like, you need to take the first step. Of course, it's not always as they say, the rosy,
Yeah.
pinky road that you would be passing through. Now, one thing you decided to go into is, innovating in logistics, right?
Yeah.
And so, what did you find? Because I ask this question usually also to inspire others. So, what did you see in that space going wrong? So you decided to innovate there with the company that you started.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think for me, it was like I knew logistics because I kind of my first company I worked was in logistics space, right? Then with civil engineering and with data science, I knew like logistics space is kind of pretty traditional, right? It's kind of non-interfered with tech experience as such. So that was really motivation. I felt like, hey, this is a space somehow looks like my journey is kind of coming together, right? Where I can bring in my personal experience uh, with working in a logistics company before as a data scientist and with civil engineering and things like that. Like, to be honest, that's how I started.
Mhm.
Did I know my opportunity that's out there? Did I know what disruption we are doing? No, I think those are all things I learned on the fly. Like, as we got into it, we took a lot of time to understand which space we are in real term, in business terms, right? But the jump, the leap of faith I took in was based on these assumptions that I had. Yeah.
So, what sets your approach apart from the traditional methods that were being done before? So, because I know, like, also as someone who is trying to enter this space, you must have done something which is, I mean, different
Yeah.
from what all the others are doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today we know how we are differentiating and how we are, different from the market and where do we fit in exactly, right? But it took us time to understand where we are. I think it's really about iterating, right? You need to
Hmm.
continuously iterate. I keep saying, like, sometimes I look back and, like, for me, every startup, like, you really need to understand the problem you are in, right? What problem you're trying to solve, like not falling in love with the solution and like trying to continuously see, like, hey, the solution matches the problem, right? But keeping the problem as your North Star and seeing if there's enough business around it, like, is there enough value that you can create on top of it? And then I think the most important thing is, can you survive? Like, it might take a year for some, it might take multiple years, right? It's like, are you willing to put in all of that time and effort till you figure it out? And I can tell, like, if you do this four things again and again, you will figure it out. Like, we are all problem solvers, right? So all we need is we need more time, we need more focus, we need more guidance, right? And I think as you keep doing it, eventually you will figure it out, but you just need to be there till that point happens. And most of the people, like, say, quit it, like, like maybe right before it or a year before it, right? So that persistence is, I think, very important.
Yeah, and exactly. And this is, I think you would agree with me, Tarun. Like, this is what everyone talks. Like, keep trying to iterate to find your product market fit,
Yeah.
and this is, it's a journey. It's not like a sprint, right? So you
Yeah.
cannot just say, okay, hey, yeah, this is not. But I would ask you something, Tarun. In your opinion, because you mentioned very valid point. So you said sometimes you need to wait a year, sometimes multiple years. But
Yeah.
is there any, I would say, best practice, like if you when you should really pivot, like when is
Yeah.
you say, okay, look, okay, guys, what we are doing, I think it's not resonating in the market. We
Yeah.
should do something else. Like, is there some signals that will tell you that also as well?
Yeah, I think these are very personal decisions for me. Like, yeah, I mean, the two type of pivoting, right? You should always like pivot on your solution. You should always pivot on your methodologies, processes, right? But when you pivot on problem itself, like, hey, problem also can be within the same industry, same customers. Maybe you're tackling something different, and there's something others. Like, hey guys, like, you know what? Let's stop all of this and we'll start something new, right? I think
Mhm.
for me, I think it comes down to the person. Like, like I said, like, for us, like, we were very persistent in the same space, right? And today, I feel like we are reaping rewards. Like, we feel it. We feel the growth. We know what is right, what is wrong. And if you ask me the same question 2 years back, I think I wouldn't have had the same confidence, or I would have been able to say it, right? But today, I'm able to because though we were persistent with the same thing, right? We saw the other side. Um, we did some minor pivots, right? But we kind of stuck to the same industry and same bit of customers, but we tried to find the product market fit and the solutions and things on those lines. So yeah, I think it's challenging. I would always believe like maybe it's like it's up to the person, like people like but have a plan in place that you want to execute, and if things don't fall in line, and if you have very less appetite for risk, then you should pivot sooner, I guess.
Yeah, great. I agree with you, Tarun. Now, I know that you have I would say, love of product management, right? So,
Yeah.
how this passion, influenced, the development and success of, PartRunner.
Yeah. So for me, like the partner journey is like has two folds to it, right? One is the entrepreneurship journey, and the
Mm-hmm.
second part is like literally like discovering product management, right? Uh, because I was like a data scientist who learned how to code through Coursera to build some prototypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't this like expert or haven't had this computer science background, right? It was just like doing some basic coding and building some websites, right? That too, like when I wanted to start on this idea, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then the journey itself takes you to different steps, right? You are the developer first, and then you suddenly have to manage team, and then you have to manage bigger team, right? So you need to slowly start wearing different hats, and that's how I have evolved. Like evolved through this. I have done my share of mistakes in this journey too, right? Looking back, I would definitely say like always have a mentor uh, in your early phase, right? Especially when you are not the expertise in the field, right? If you're trying something new, something haven't done before, right? I think those will help always to make sure, like, they're telling you those small details. It's not easy. Like when an expert says, it's easy to, yeah, it makes sense, but to implant those things and put it as part of your process, it takes some maturity. Um, but yeah, I think those are things looking back. And I think PartRunner today is building a tech logistics platform, right? Ultimately, the product will decide how faster can we grow or not grow, right? So, a lot of challenges, but solvable for sure.
That's great. Now, you mentioned something also, which I think it's very important, and I want to hear your opinion on this. So, because you said like you need to wear multiple hats and then you need to manage multiple things at the same time. Now, one of the things, when we talk about product and market needs, so you need also to try to see how you can do innovations, right? So in your opinion, how do you balance, the concept of innovating your product, with the immediate market needs and demands, but at the same time, without breaking the whole thing? So how do you do this,
Yeah.
balance between these two concepts?
Yeah. That's why, I mean, they say like product is like a bit of science and art, right? So, it's tough to say. Like, I think everyone has their own ways. And a lot of times it's built on kind of, I would say, intuition, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it shouldn't just be a guesswork. It shouldn't be like, oh, I just feel so strongly about it, right? So you always need to back it up with some kind of uh, arithmetic numbers, right? Maybe something that tells you like, hey, by investing into this, right, you are able to maybe test something else. You are able to prove something, right? I
Hmm.
think that should be your foundation. Like, it's not easy to become completely numbers driven at a early stage, right? To understand the impact and all, but having like fundamental assumptions behind it, why you want to do certain tasks and why you don't want to do, I think that will help in deciding where to iterate. And one of the biggest mistake many startups do is like, like you start with a problem, right? And these days the expectation is like you should also have a solution in place. Like you have like a prototype, right?
Hmm.
Uh, you should have a prototype as soon as possible, like right? And once you have a prototype, the mistake people tend to do is like as they understand the problem more, they keep. I feel like we iterate on solution faster than understanding problem, right? So in a way, we fall in love more with the solution aspect, right? We keep believing that this is the right solution and we keep improving in it, putting resources. But I feel like once you have a certain MVP and things on those lines, just try to see how it can fit in the market and just go slow, right? So go slow in terms of product. You already have an MVP that should more or less solve your problems, right? And try to put more effort, even those 2-3 months into your growth strategy. Like, how do you acquire customers? How are you going to do your marketing, right? I think all of them, once you figure out those levers, it will be so easy for you to iterate on your product. But if you iterate on your product continuously, then it becomes a challenge. That's what I have experienced.
Great insight, great insight. And I love this, Tarun, because, actually, I don't know why it's a very common mistake, although like every single one talks about it, every single entrepreneur and startup founder and co-founder, they keep telling people from their experience, guys, like don't build 1,000 feature and push it to the market. Like, so as you mentioned, focus on solving this specific problem, and then start to add, and I think something I noticed when I was preparing. So you also like to interact a lot with your customers, and you mentioned something about being prepared to sales and marketing. Do you think this is an underrated thing when it comes to startups? So they just think about features and they think that it's gonna sell itself by itself, right?
Yeah, I genuinely believe so. I mean, I feel like it comes from the experience too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I didn't have any prior like entrepreneurship dreams or things like, my kind of journey kind of went in that direction, right?
Right.
So for me, like sales, marketing, these are all, I heard about them because I worked in companies, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really know what is a business, like, where does it fit in, right? And I feel like a lot of time, uh, people who start businesses, like they have certain experience, right? But they need to put themselves out of that comfort zone and understand the bigger picture. How does a business really work, right? Uh, yeah, so I think in those terms, like maybe for a person with a sales background, that the other side is kind of a gray area, right? And they need to put that effort to understand the other side, right? And similarly, for people who are coming from the tech space, right, they need to put aside the technology. You will build it, like, you will build it because you know it, right? But you need to understand how you build a business. The more crossover knowledge you gain, uh, either you should be like, you should have it or find team members who have it, right? That's why you have co-founders, like, these are the people who should be able to have those other skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, once they have those skill sets, that's the first step, right? Second thing is you should be able to still collaborate. It's not like, hey, they do their task, I do my task. No, it's like, how do you now able to feed each other with more information that will help you grow? I think that's the second thing people might miss out on. Hey, yes, these are all contradicting skills we have, but they don't really collaborate to that detail. Though they are like co-founders working in the same space, right? The crossover information doesn't happen. People tend to be in like their own comfort zone. I think that's a mistake generally happens.
Yeah. So that is very logical, Tarun. And now, and while I was also preparing, I was going through your bio, and you mentioned about all the mistakes also that happens down the road, and like sometimes you do like wrong decisions in the product itself. Sometimes you hire wrong people. Now I know for a fact that you started the company in an incubator program, right? So now, when and this is something I want your opinion about. So because some people, they come with ideas, they go to investors, and then they are under the pressure of investors. So even when normally they're gonna do mistake, they feel so much pressure. Now in incubator, I know it's like more relaxed. I mean, not
Yeah,
relaxed in the sense of relaxed, but I mean, at least in the incubator, you have the access to mentors, you would have access to fund, but still you have this space to do these mistakes, right? Which is,
yeah,
you cannot avoid them actually. You, especially
yeah.
if you are a first time founder. Now, my question is, from your experience, and I know like this is comes a lot. People comes to me. So if I have an idea today, um, should I raise and start to get investors before having the MVP, or should I have the MVP first and then I will go and show people, hey guys, like I have some traction, I know that there is a demand, I have the data, and you come from a data
Yeah.
science background. and then this is the market size. So in your opinion, which one should come first? I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's tough. I don't think there's one answer that fits for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generally, for first-time founders, like, if you just go with an idea and like, hey, put money, like people will be less willing to, right? Because you're not willing to take the next step, right? And how
Right.
much credibility have you built that someone should be willing to trust you with money, right? The credibility is like, hey, I have been working on this for 6 months, I have built some prototypes, I have some traction, right? But I think if you're a multi-time founder, then people take your previous experience and they are maybe willing to just put it in terms of idea, right? Because even for investors, it's the risk and reward, right?
Right.
They understand like, hey, by joining your journey earlier, they're able to reap more rewards, right? So I would say it that way. I think if you're a first time founder, your aim is not to raise money, right? Your aim is to solve something, like, and that should be a focus. And when you keep solving this, you might find a need to raise money, right? Most likely you will find a need. And you should know whether how long can you bootstrap. That again depends upon your personal risk level. And being more aware about those things will tell you like when is the right time to bring in money. In terms of investors' pressure, I have observed like I think till you are between seed and series A, investors are not going to message you every day saying like, hey, have you hit your next goal? Right. They're
Mm-hmm.
just betting on people like us, like, hey, there seems to be a cool idea. There seems to be hardworking, right? Let me put some money there, right? I think it's really when you go to seed and like series A, somewhere in between there, then the bets go higher. And then there's a lot of pressure that, okay, where is the value? Are you growing or not growing, right? So yeah, I think I would put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great answer, Tarun, and this is usually what my guests also they answer it. There's no one answer that can fit every scenario and every startup. Each situation is different. But yeah, generally, actually, the advice that you gave about like as long as you can still bootstrap and you have the your runways and you are aware about how much cash still you can burn from your own pocket, from mom and dad and family and friends. Yeah, so
There's
what
also
I've seen
some
you.
businesses are also very cash intensive. Like, maybe you're building like this amazing project, but you need to burn a lot of server
Mm,
costs, things like that, right? And but
yes.
some business can be completely bootstrapped, like mostly marketplaces, like you bring in value at a time, right? So it's possible to bootstrap. But if you're coming with a very tech heavy, then maybe you need to do a lot of development. Can it be done by one person? You need multiple people. Then there are a lot of factors that go into that. But yeah,
Yeah. Great you mentioned the marketplace. And I know like you talk about the chicken and egg problem when
yeah,
building marketplace. So can you tell us about this problem and how to overcome it?
sure. I think to be honest, I don't think there's always a chicken and egg problem. I feel like, if you are solving something, there's always one part of it that should come easy. Okay. If it is very tough to crack both side of the marketplace, then it's extremely challenging, right? If you need to match every demand with a supply, it is not really a marketplace, right? It becomes extremely challenging. So whenever you're solving a problem that is kind of solved has a chicken and egg, there should be one part which is much more warmer, much more easier to get traction, where you can do some empty promises that we will do it, right? And there's the other side which is much more like, and mainly the customer side, right? There should be like that they want to see something to pay, right?
Right.
Yeah. So for me in a marketplace, if you take the supply and the demand, I feel like your supply should be easier to get. If your supply is also tough to get, then it's a very tough thing to crack that model marketplace.
Exactly, exactly. I like this, Tarun, because the other day I will not mention names or anything. So someone come to me with an idea of a marketplace, and he was very excited, explaining to me, and then I said, "Okay, hold on one second." I said, "I think you're gonna find your customers easy, but how are you gonna find the suppliers? The other side of the marketplace." And then for one second, he said, "Yeah, you're right. Like I never thought about it this way." I said, "Look, like technology today allows you to spawn out a marketplace. You don't even to throw too much money to have even an MVP of a marketplace. But if you don't show, your customers something which is ready for them to try and access, like you'll end up by doing nothing. Actually, you'll be just wasting your time. So I said, but very, very, accurate point, and this is great advice. Like find the supplier part, easy. If
Yeah.
it's easy, that will make the life much easier. So, but how do you, for example, for your case, you convince like mm, different stakeholders to come up to your platform? Like, what do you saw something that works really good?
I mean, generally in supply, right? Like when you build a business, what I observed is like you're not building something out of nothing. Like, there are certain practices that are already there. You are trying to fine tune it and make it better experience for customers, right? So maybe the customer has a particular problem, then the solutions are there, but the solutions are kind of dispersed between different places, right? So it becomes
Hmm.
too big, like, too much for the customer to deal with all those things. We are trying to unify those different aspects, right? So, yeah, so for me, I think convincing, like, at least on the supply side. So I feel like your supply already exists. Your supply is already dealing with certain things, right? You're just trying to find the right fit for you. In terms of customers, definitely you need to iterate a lot on finding your ideal customers, right? You'll find some traction in the beginning, but they may not really be the right ones, right? They may not be the ones that are going to give you a lot of demand, or those may not be the ones that will continue to stay with you, right? So on the customer side, it's a continuous iteration and figuring it out, like, who are the right ones. But like I said, on the supply, I think your supply should already be existing, doing different things, and they should be willing to come to you also pretty easily without any struggle.
Yeah, great. Now, Sarun, like, I want to go back to the space where you are in today, which is
Yeah.
mainly in the logistics, right? So, well, what future trends are you seeing, and how do you anticipate, with the PartRunner, to
Yeah.
get on the hype of these future trends
Yeah.
and the evolving demands?
Yeah. So what we observed is basically, to be honest, we didn't even know this when we started, right? What we observed is like post Uber, the lot of marketplaces are like, basically this whole IC concept, independent contractors, right? That has
Mm-hmm.
been replicated in different sectors, right? And same thing happened with logistics. And and what we found is the last mile, the small parcel, anything like small boxes, right? With DoorDash, it started with the food industry, but they all kind of ventured into like, okay, what can fit into a car, right?
Right.
Anything that can fit into a car, which doesn't need any special labor intense or anything like that, or doesn't need any insurance, or it's kind of straightforward, right? You take a package and you put it in your box and you go and deliver, right? I think that is pretty much commoditized, and the biggest players have already occupied most of the market, right? Um, so we kind of call it like a small parcel in the last mile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we find the opportunity, and this is something uh, in US there is competition, and especially in LATAM is where, like, where PartRunner is, in a way, we are one of the first to enter that space, right? Is the big and bulky side. What is big and bulky? Like anything that cannot be put in a box, right? Think of a pipes or refrigerators or like, condensers, unit, right? Which are very heavy, which are construction related or industrial suppliers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with user behavior, even they also want to move these things faster and more efficiently, right? So I think that's the marketplace. That is, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential for disruption because it's still driven by very traditional logistics where they hire their own driver, they have their own vehicles, right? And everything is done on a piece of paper. So there's a lot of scope of technology-based disruption on that front, but it's a very uphill task because moving those material in faster and efficiently is not straightforward.
So, but do you anticipate to be able to help on that part? I mean,
So that's where we are focusing on. That's where we believe we have found some of the secret sauce that we need
good,
to marinate more and more, I guess. But yeah, but we are
cool.
heading there. We are heading there, and we see a lot of initial traction, especially in LATAM, in Mexico. We have grown like 10x in last 1 year,
Wow.
uh, and I think the difference is like we see a trend. We see a trend of users. We can see like how our next 10x growth will look like. What we need to do for that.
Great, great. Any plans for further expansion on like global level?
Yeah, it's interesting. Though we are in last mile today, we have operations in US and Mexico, and Mexico is where we have like the higher growth right now. So we want to like just continue with US as we are with slower expansion plans, but hyper focusing on Mexico and Latam. Maybe in like 2024, we want to replicate some of this in other Latam countries.
That's great, Tarun. Good to know. Um, usually I try to see if I missed anything when discussing with you, Tarun. Is there any point that I should have touched based upon, like anything you want to share?
No, I think this has been really great conversation, right? Like I think you kind of asked like those right questions that people need to hear more and more. That's what I can say. Like personally, I haven't done it too, right? Uh, like the thing is, I feel like when you start getting into the startup, like you need to come with a little bit like you need to be ready to forget everything you know. Like you should be like, oh, I don't know anything. I need to know, right? You need to
Right.
have that mindset. If you have like, oh, I know it, then it becomes extremely tough. You're always fighting the battle against what you know and what the market is telling you. So sometimes you need to become extremely like egoless, and which is tough because you need to go with your gut. That there are a lot of factors there, so it's not an easy mix to find. But if you are there, if you keep going at it, you will find. That's what I believe. Like it takes time, but you will find. Yeah.
Great. Where the audience can find more about you and about uh, your company.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can connect me in LinkedIn. You can go to PartRunner.com, right? We tend to put a lot of blog posts in LinkedIn too, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's the quickest way to reach out. Yeah.
Great. I'll make sure that I will put the links in the show notes of the episode. Tarun, well, I really also enjoyed the conversation. It was, I think, very authentic from the heart. I like the way where you try to explain, all the, I would say, challenges and, the journey that you had, which is very inspiring. I'm sure, a lot of, especially first time founders, which honestly, I try to focus my episodes to be targeting them in different topics, whether it's like entrepreneurship, product management, technology perspective, and so on. So basically, a lot of information you shared with us today. Thank you very much, Tarun, for your time. And usually, this is how I end my episode. For first time, if you're tuning in, thank you very much for passing by. I hope you become a loyal listener or viewer. And if you are one of our loyal also followers, thank you very much for all your support and all your comments that you keep sending to me. And if you are interested also to be on the show, like Tarun was today, don't be shy. Reach out, and we can make the arrangement. And again, thank you for tuning in, and see you again in a next episode. Thank you. Bye bye.
Perfect.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.